Hey everybody, it's Wave Storm Tracking Team Meteorologist Ryan Hoke here with you. Another evening of going over the impactful weather that we'll have for the next day here on Wave Weather Now, our 24/7 weather live stream, Louisville's only and original 24/7 weather live stream here. The reason I'm on at a weird time tonight is because we've got NFL football on NBC, and that has completely blown out the 7 p.m. news here on Wave, so I thought I'd take that time and go over the latest on tomorrow's alert day with you. This is the first severe weather-related alert day that we have had since, I believe, July 20th. So it has been some time around here, well over a month since we faced any sort of severe weather risk, which is a good thing. It's been nice to have a break, but unfortunately the weather has to change and kind of come back into reality at some point, right? So let's have a few folks in the room here, kind of chime in with what you might be doing this evening. Let me know what you're doing this evening here at the comments, because it's 6:51 p.m. Are you eating dinner? Maybe you're kind of sitting on the couch with the family getting ready for football to start. Maybe you're just browsing your computer. Let me know what you're up to this evening here as folks are getting in and we see those viewer counts go up, and then we'll start, of course, discussing this alert day for tomorrow, Friday, between 4 and 9 p.m. Just a reminder that you can always watch Wave Weather Now on your streaming televisions, much like a Roku, an Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Just search for the Wave Now app in your streaming TV app store. There we go. Hello, Samantha. Samantha Maddox is in the room. Hello to you. Thanks for joining us this evening. OPC Gamer on YouTube says, I'm playing video games on my phone. Yeah. 6:50 p.m. That's what I'd like to be doing right now, too. Lydia's like, oh, I'm watching you. That's what I'm doing here. That makes sense, right? Totally get that. I definitely agree. Let's see. Allie says, football practice with our son in Mount Washington. That's what she's up to. Sharon's in the room here. And by the way, I've put some of your comments up on the right-hand side of the screen, too. This is a thing that our streaming provider is testing here, where you can kind of see some always-on comments. I'll turn those on from time to time here. Let's see. Heather says, tired from last night's storms. My dogs had me up all night, so an 8 p.m. bedtime sounds nice. I am totally with you. I am tired from last night, too. I was up till about 2 o'clock. Keeping an eye on things while Tawana Andrew was getting into work here, and of course, doing her thing for sunrise. Braden says, sitting outside. Yes. Oh, there's Wavy. Wavy did get the alert that went to the Wave Weather app here, so you'll always see those at the bottom of the screen. Anytime we send an alert to our weather app, it'll pop up here on Wave Weather Now with the text of that alert, even if it's going to just specific geographic locations. It'll still show up here so that we can broadcast those alerts as well. National Weather Service alerts, earthquakes, hurricanes, you name it. Wavy can do it. Wavy fetches alerts for you first on Wave Weather Now. Samantha, hope you're doing well too. Our friend Tim Skis, can I dust off my Skywarn equipment? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Mace Goddess says, binging shows until notification. Yeah, totally get that. Just doing some catching up on your streaming, I guess. Let's see. Cross country meet with my grandson, says Sharon. That's what she's up to. Crispy brisket. We like crispy brisket because it's fun to say. YouTube says, just got the alert there. And then we'll do one more. Kathy says hello from E-Town. Okay, we'll do one more after that because we've got Angela here. Evening to Ryan and Wavy. Evening to you, Angela. All right, we've got easily over 150 folks in the room. They'll start filing in. This is a little early to do this. Maybe folks aren't as available as they'd like to be. So we'll kind of take it slow here initially and then kind of ramp things up. And then eventually we'll get enough folks in here so I don't have to keep repeating the same thing over and over as folks are generally joining our live broadcast here that started about 4 minutes ago. In the spirit of getting you the information you want to know, let's go for it. Friday, 4 to 9 p.m. is the timing on this Wave Weather Alert Day. And the thing that you should know is that not everybody's going to see storms. That's point number one. Point number two is that we will more likely see rain after this period. It's these initial sort of scattered storms that'll be a problem tomorrow, especially in Kentucky. And then we'll get like this big old stratiform, batch of rain late Friday and especially early Saturday morning. So expect rain Saturday morning, expect rain overnight Friday night, but your concern about severe weather should be limited to just 4 to 9 p.m., okay? Because those severe weather ingredients will be out of our area after 9 p.m. Any rain or thunder that you hear after that point, you can sleep soundly with, okay? So a couple of things to note there. Strong storms may become severe at times, especially in Kentucky with this setup. The wind and hail threats are the biggest threats. The wind would be about 60 plus miles per hour on the gusts that we would see potentially. The hail would be pea to quarter size. We could see some reports of ping pong balls out of this just because there's so much instability. But the thing is that it will be very warm tomorrow afternoon, mid to upper 80s, maybe some 90s in extreme southern Kentucky here. So that's going to melt some of that hail. However, on the kind of flip side of that card, all of that heat energy will go into explosively, developing these storms. So the instability will help. The cool air moving in aloft will help develop hail, but this is not like a signature sort of April or May giant hail setup. It's just not that. And then the tornado threat. It's high enough to mention, that's for sure. It's not high enough to get all panicked about. You should never panic about the weather, by the way. That's like our job is to do the worrying for you. Just watch us, like you're doing right now, and we'll give you what you need to know and tell you when it's time to be concerned. But at this point, there is some concern about an isolated tornado or two out of this setup. It is not a very high concern. We do get tornadoes in September sometimes, but this is relatively a quiet month in general, climatologically speaking, for tornado activity in our viewing area. But it doesn't mean they can't happen. So, something to keep in mind here, got to meet our expectations. This all, even though it's a scattered storm chance, and of course it gets a little higher as we go through the evening, is a concern because of all the outdoor events. We got a U of L football game tomorrow night. If that thing had happened Saturday night, we wouldn't be as concerned. We still have the touchdown Friday night high school football games. That's a concern, regardless, because that's always a Friday night thing. Bardstown is having the Kentucky Bourbon Festival going on. So many folks will be outside in tents for that. Just know this, a tent is not a safe place to ride out a thunderstorm because it is not an enclosed building. Lightning is a big problem for people in tents. Lightning is a big problem for outdoor event venues like sports stadiums. So high school football, college football, festivals and events, stay indoors when there are thunderstorms and have the Wave Weather app so that you can have those lightning push notifications, and we'll be sending you custom geographically targeted push alerts to your location if you happen to find yourself at one of these football games, especially like the U of L football game. We can circle it on a map and send a notification just to folks who are there. So the Wave Weather app does show a quiet night. We'll start things quiet and then we'll ramp it up as we said we would. We're talking about clear skies, temperatures in the 50s. It's a good start to our, what is tomorrow? Friday. Good start to our Friday. Been talking about Friday. Tomorrow is Friday. Right now, we're quiet. We had all that rain this morning. Picked up like half an inch at my house. Heard some folks pick up more than an inch out of this at times. So, yep, that was a pretty good soaking. We needed it. It was nice to get the rain without having any sort of big reports of damage. We did have some power outages up in Lawrence County, Indiana late last night. We did have one severe thunderstorm warning around 1:06 a.m. last night up for Lawrence and Jackson counties. Thankfully, that was the only warning we had. We really didn't expect anything, and sure enough, I didn't hear much in the way of damage out of that at all, aside from just the power outage number spiking a bit in Lawrence County. They had about 3% of their customers without power last night up there in Lawrence County. So let's look ahead here. We've got the severe weather risks today plotted on here. This is for right now. So you'll see two areas of marginal risk. One is along that old cold front from last night that we just had. Now it's in the mountains of Appalachia and up toward like the Poconos and the areas up in the northeast. But you see another area over northwest Iowa, southwest Minnesota, and southeast South Dakota. Really testing my plains geography here. That is because of the new system we'll be watching for tomorrow. That is now prompting a slight risk of severe weather. Just food for thought here, something to note. When we were on talking about this system late last night, there was no severe weather risk for Friday. And now we've ramped it up to a 2 out of 5. And I remember showing this map going, there's probably going to be something on here tomorrow, aka today, for Friday. And sure enough, that's what happened here. So 2 out of 5 slight risk in Kentucky, marginal risk in that green shade elsewhere. Here's the county by county view with the cities plotted. And you'll see that it's mostly Kentucky in this severe risk. However, if I were a forecaster at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, and I were drawing this map right now, because again, this map is from earlier today, data comes in, data changes. If I were to draw where that yellow line would go, I'd put it right here. So yeah, I would put Louisville in the slight risk. Does it really matter who's in what exact risk category? No, it doesn't. But people always ask, and they're always curious. So I did want to give you at least the inside baseball on that. But you get the idea here is that Louisville may very well be in kind of in cahoots with the rest of this, sort of slight risk of severe weather. This, I don't want to call it elevated, but it's just a higher risk than the marginal here. And we can still get some pretty bad weather and slight risks. I had a comment on Facebook earlier today, like, why are y'all flagging an alert day for a slight risk? Well, two reasons. One, a slight risk, we have had numerous tornadoes in before. Not every slight risk is the same. Some slight risks bust and nothing happens. Other slight risks are like, whoa, that should have been like an enhanced or a moderate, right? So you don't want to treat a slight risk as just a slight risk. And we don't ever want to do that with a marginal either, though it's easier to do that statistically speaking. But you don't want to treat a slight risk like nothing, okay? And that's why our alert day criteria, this is reason 2, has built in a trigger for an alert day if we have 30% or more of our 34 counties, you see them in outlines there, in a slight risk. So easily we meet that. I would guesstimate somewhere around 40%, maybe 35% of our counties are in that risk area. So we meet the criteria. A slight risk is something we've got to pay attention to. That's the reason for the alert day. So we can break down this risk area by category of hazard. Obviously, the number one hazard that everybody thinks about is tornado risk, right? So the tornado potential here is at 2%. That's the lowest tier that they have from the Storm Prediction Center. So the reason they issued the slight risk is not because of the tornado risk, okay? So the tornado risk is kind of second banana sitting over here in the corner like the redheaded stepchild, all right? It's just not the main thing. It's not the main reason. And if you're a redheaded stepchild, I am sorry. I'm a stepchild too, so I'm right there with you. I'm just a, I guess, brown-haired one. But you get the idea here that the tornado risk is not the main thing. The main thing is the wind potential. And you'll see that the 15% wind potential outlines exactly with where that slight risk is. So that's the thing that caused the upgrade to the slight risk in Kentucky. Again, I do think some of this may move northward a county or so. We'll see how that goes. It's not my call. Storm Prediction Center, Norman, Oklahoma, your tax dollars at work. They take care of that, okay? That's their job, but we can at least give you local insight because, they're doing the whole country, and we are just looking at 34 counties here, so we can kind of more surgically say, like, hey, we need to, nudge this north, do this and that. And the National Weather Service in Louisville also has some input into that, too. So sometimes they'll be on a conference call, especially with watches and things like that, trying to jockey for more or fewer of their counties in these, watches and sometimes risk areas here. So it's interesting how this all works, the collaboration that goes on at the federal level there. But that's the wind risk, 15%. So that's like the second lowest, right? So it's not the lowest, but it's the second lowest. It's enough to trigger an upgrade to the slight risk. The hail potential, just like the tornado potential, is at the lowest level at 5%. All right. And that means there's a 5% that anywhere within 25 miles of a point could have quarter size or larger hail. That 2% tornado risk was anywhere within 25 miles of a point could have a tornado, and that would be a 2% chance of that, right? Better than winning the lottery, that's for sure, given the jackpot that's going on with the Powerball. But I don't want to be playing those odds. That's why I think folks should pay attention to this. This is a much higher chance of having something happen compared to you winning the Powerball jackpot by like orders of magnitude. Even so, this is still not something to lose sleep over, to panic about. This is definitely not in that realm at all. This is peanuts compared to what we had back in March and April of this year with our rough severe weather season in the spring. But this is the one severe weather setup that we have had since July. So you get the idea here with that it's not a huge threat, but it's one that we need to pay attention to. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to some of the data here. This is the nerd stuff here for just a second. We're going to put on our wavy weather alert bot ears here and do a little machine learning, if you will. It's a fancy word for AI. So wavy is not AI, by the way. It's just a bot. Strict programming rules, no AI in that. which is good because that would drive us nuts if that thing were AI and gained sentience and then started to take over. But no, this is, all jokes aside, this data right here shows us a couple of things. The first row that you see here, in fact, let me get my fancy drawing tool here. The first row, well, let me draw, yay, well, okay. The first row that you see here, that is CIPS, C-I-P-S. Basically, that is a analog look back at previous events. So an analog is a historical storm event, and comparing those to now to see what the future risk could be based on past performance. So I think St. Louis University runs this. And you'll see that it does have some tornado risk here in the green. It has some wind risk here in the blue on the very right-hand panel. So it's not super crazy impressive, and it's mostly south of us for the tornado risk, but over most of Kentucky for the wind risk. So let's go down a row. This is the CSU, the Colorado State University machine learning basically model, if you will, and it's looking at AI generated forecasts and data and models and kind of putting all of this together using a machine learning algorithm to determine where the severe weather risk would be. And this one doesn't have a whole, well, actually it has 0 tornado risk as of right now. I don't think this is the 12Z run, though. I'd have to look at the 12Z run. That may have some. But it does nail it with the wind and the hail here being in Kentucky, and it matches pretty well with where the Storm Prediction Center is. They look at this stuff too, by the way. Storm Prediction Center, National Weather Service, they do. And you can see the Storm Prediction Center's version of events there at the very bottom row that I've just revealed there. You can see the tornado risk there on the very left. In the center, you can see, of course, the wind, and then, or excuse me, the hail, and then on the right would be the wind. So you get the idea. The data all says that there is some concern for severe weather tomorrow. So let's look at those storm chances and some of that model data in focus here, all right? Before we do that, I've gone over a lot of stuff already. Type the number 6 if you're good. If you're good, type the number 6. I'm stealing a page out of Brian Good's book here. Type the number 6 if you're good in the comments there. We'll pop up the comments so that we can see those go up there. And this will just tell me that you've kind of ingested what I've said so far. This is kind of the top line information that I've given you. We're getting ready to go into the weeds. I said we'd kind of, get a little bit more in depth, a little more into the specifics of this as we went through time, and we're getting ready to go through that now. Look at all these 6s coming up. Kathy and Linda. All right, good. James, excellent. You guys are good with what I've just said. Okay, deep breath. Sometimes we have to take a breather, so we need to make sure that everybody knows that what's going to happen here. Let's see here. Crispy Brisket says, NWS Louisville said spin-ups, that seems at odds with a supercell. Are higher-end tornadoes a concern at all? Short-lived tornadoes weaker, if any? Okay, yeah, I know that can be confusing. So those two things are not at odds with one another, surprisingly. A spin-up tornado can occur with a supercell. So a supercell storm, in fact, only a very small percentage of supercell storms actually put down a tornado. However, if you look at the types of storms, supercell storms are the most likely to put down a strong tornado. But it doesn't mean that the tornadoes that they put down are always strong. Tomorrow is a setup where you can have supercell storms, which basically is just an individual storm with rotation in it, right? These little cells that are not good. Those storms can put down weak spin-up tornadoes. I've seen it before in person. It happens. And we don't have the wind shear profile that's necessary for bad tornadoes tomorrow, all right? That's why it's a spin-up tornado, an isolated tornado. Those are kind of similar ways to word this. We try to word this so that folks get a clue that hey, this is not a tornado outbreak. This is, a chance of a brief tornado. That's kind of where we're at for tomorrow, all right? Those two things are not at odds. They would be the short-lived, weaker tornadoes if they were to materialize. Lots of other folks here typing 6 like Shonda and Braden. Excellent. All right, let's move on then. I'll turn the comments off for just a second. Okay. Let's go into the timing. And what we do on TV is we color the bars of our precipitation graphs that we show you to not only tell you if it's going to be rain, snow, or ice, but also we use the color red if we're looking for severe weather. And so between that 4 and 9 p.m. time frame here is what we've pegged for tomorrow's severe weather window. Now, I had a question today, and I referenced this earlier. I'm going to reference it again because we've got like double the number of people in here that probably heard this earlier. But just because we don't have a 100% chance of storms doesn't mean there can't be severe weather. Somebody was asking today, hey, I don't see a 100% chance of storms, so like what gives, I only see like 20, 30, 40%. What's up with that? Well, you don't have to have a high chance of storms to have a chance of severe weather, because any storm that does form, even if it only covers a very small part of our viewing area, could be severe. Look, southern Indiana tomorrow will likely get missed from most of this severe weather talk. This is mainly a Kentucky issue. You've seen some of the data. You've seen the Storm Prediction Center outlook I just showed you. It's not really for Indiana. It may be for like the very southern part of Clark, Floyd, and maybe Harrison. But if you're like in Salem or Scottsburg or up there in Seymour, we're really not talking about you tomorrow. You'll get some rain late tomorrow night, but this isn't really your severe weather setup, okay? So let's show you some of the data. This is the graph model, GRAF, from the weather company. I typically show the HRRR model. It has not been doing a good job lately. It has been looking, the storm setup that it's been displaying on certain model runs leading up to, especially yesterday or / this morning's event, wasn't very good up until the last minute. It caught on at like 0Z last night with that run, like, hey, that looks good. Okay, cool. That's probably what's going to happen. It has started to catch on today with the 18Z run, but I think the graph has a better look at what will actually happen tomorrow. So this is the graph model. And you'll see by 4:30, we've got some of these little cells starting to pop up. These could be supercell storms. Notice how they're individualized. They're not very strong yet, but we're already within our 4 to 9 p.m. window here at 4:30, all right? Let's advance it one more time. This is 8:30. This may very well be the peak of the problems that we have. You can see the graph is trying to put some clusters of potentially supercell storms in southern Kentucky, another cluster of storms that could potentially have embedded supercells along the river here, closer to Louisville. So that's something to keep in mind, all right? The timing of this, it may be very well a situation where most of the day is dry and sunny and very warm, highs in the 80s, and then it would be like 6, 7, 8 o'clock, boom, 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 everything's just going haywire all at once. But even so, with that in mind, notice not everybody sees the storms. There are big old gaps between these guys. So that's why it's only, quote unquote, a 40% storm chance for now. We will look at the 0Z runs of the data tonight and see if we need to increase that at all. But for now, that is the chance of precipitation, the POP, the probability of precipitation that we have for that time frame. So just because it's a low coverage of storms doesn't mean the severe risk is necessarily zero. It just means that a small part of our area would experience the severe weather, hence the slight risk, right? If these were super widespread, more numerous thunderstorms with a slightly higher sort of threat level, then we would have a higher risk area from the Storm Prediction Center. But for now, it's at a slight. It'll probably stay there too. After 9 p.m., all the instability will be pretty much out of here. It'll be in eastern Kentucky. The wind shear profile, too, will start to become a little less favorable over time. But overall, it's going to be the instability that's gone. We'll lose that little bubble as the cold front moves through. And then what happens is there's more rain, which we'll get to here in just a few minutes. So there's more rain for Saturday morning with this system. But let's break down the severe weather part of this once more. The slight risk, the 2 out of 5, again, along and south of the Western Kentucky and Bluegrass Parkways. Louisville's in the marginal risk. That could get bumped up to the slight. They may extend that north. We'll see what happens with the data overnight and what they're going to do with it. You know that sound. U of L football in action tomorrow. This was one of our concerns. This is part of the reason why tomorrow is an alert day, aside from the slight risk of severe weather. It's the lightning and severe weather threat plus outdoor events like this big old football game right here that gives us pause and concern. 4 to 9 p.m. is our risk window for severe weather tomorrow. The U of L game kicks off at 7 and will probably last somewhere between 7 and 9:30, 7 to 10. So that's pretty square within that window of severe weather, right? Yikes, not great. So especially at the end of that period, like that 7, 8, 9 period, that's when we're a little more concerned than not. So have the Wave Weather app with you. Listen to instructions over the stadium PA system if they have to give any, because lightning is a huge concern with outdoor stadiums. There's literally no cover. So they might have to, evacuate people into the concourses around the stadium, where you get your food and beverage and bathrooms and such, if these storms get close enough. I know they've got folks watching that there. Typically, they've got the National Weather Service somewhere in and around, as a consulting sort of fashion there. So they'll have folks watching this, but you need to watch it too with the Wave Weather app. It's always best to be prepared individually instead of relying on someone else. They say, like, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And that's the way it goes with keeping track of weather. The Wave Weather app is a way for you to do it yourself, to keep informed, see these push notifications as we're sending them out. I will be here tomorrow night, and if these storms get close enough, I will circle the stadium and the surrounding area and send out a custom push notification to our app users within that area of the stadium saying, hey, hit the deck, right? So we'll see what happens tomorrow. There is a chance where these storms would trend south of Louisville and miss us completely, and then it's just mainly a central and southern Kentucky deal. So I wanted that to also be in your frame of mind looking at all of this. This is not 100%. It's 40%, if you get what I'm talking about here. Probability of precipitation. Okay, so what about like the threat levels? This I went back and forth on today while making this graphic and updating it, trying to decide, which threat levels I would put on this. Wind was easily the number one, just because looking at the wind energy, there's plenty of that. And there's lots of instability, lots of heat energy for this tomorrow. Cape values are like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 joules per kilogram for those nerds out there. That's a lot. And so wind, microbursts, downbursts, straight line winds, rear inflow jets, you name it, all that kind of stuff on the table for tomorrow. So wind was a 3 out of 5, easy. So what do we do about this tornado, hail, and flooding threat then? Well, I wanted it to be at least a step down, but if I put it at the number 1 slot there, I felt like that wasn't giving each of these 3 enough credit, because the tornado threat is definitely low, and it's much lower than the wind threat, but it's certainly not 0, and there is just enough low-level wind shear in the atmosphere. That's the turning of winds with height and the difference in speeds too. That, the tornado threat is an isolated one. It's a brief one, but it is one to keep an eye on. I don't think that'll be a huge problem tomorrow, but if we see a red polygon pop on the map, that also wouldn't shock me. The hail threat, very same level, lots of P's and dimes and nickels probably out of these storms tomorrow, but seeing anything bigger than that with how warm it's going to be is going to be tough. There will be some cooler air filtering in a loft, I should say, and there may be some hail on the backside of the front, and this would be like early Saturday morning. We'll talk about that in a minute. That would be like a bigger volume of like pea-size hail possible. So like a lot of peas. Won't damage anything, but you get the idea there with that, as that cold air kind of moves in the loft. And then flooding, I put a 2 out of 5 just because there's going to be a lot of rain with these. We could see 1 to 2 inches of rainfall out of some of these storms. We had a good dose of rain this morning, especially in Kentucky and parts of Indiana too, for that matter. So our soils are not like super waterlogged because it's been so dry recently, but the rainfall rates could get to a point where we have a few minor flooding issues tomorrow. So that's kind of my rationale as to why I've made the threat levels as they are here. Make sure you've got the Wave Weather app. Turn on the alerts in settings there. You can always go into the app and turn on which alerts you want or don't want to get. Some people don't want to get maybe severe thunderstorm watches. That's okay. You can turn those off. Keep the severe thunderstorm warnings on, please. And then you can also change the sounds of the alerts. If you don't like the voice alerts, you can turn on like a ding or a tornado siren sound or whatever you want to do. There's like tons of different settings in there. So really go through the Wave Weather app, tap that hamburger button and tap settings. Hamburger button's the 3 lines button you'll see on the top right or top left. I can't remember it right this second. In fact, I'm going to take it out just so that I tell you exactly the right thing. Let's see which side of the screen it's on. Okay, so this is the Wave Weather app. You can kind of see it. It's the button that's right here on the top right. I had it right. Tap that, and you'll see where it says settings. Tap that, and there's all sorts of alert settings. See where it says Wave 3 news alerts, keep those on, and then weather notification types. Tap that, and then you'll be able to see all the things you can toggle on and off. There's little buttons you can scroll through here and see even more types of alerts and what that means. So that's pretty cool. And then notification sounds, you can tap that and then customize the sounds. Announce means Kevin's voice. for each of those severe weather, lightning, precipitation, and wave news alerts. So lots of customization, so you don't have to have all the alerts that you don't want in the Wave Weather app, and keep the alerts that you do want. NOAA Weather Radio, I keep preaching this, and I keep hearing, kind of some crickets about this, and people asking like, hey, what's this? What's the NOAA Weather Radio? Let's be fully transparent here. Some folks may not know what that is. It's a little device. It's about yay big. You buy it for like, what, 30, 40 bucks, sometimes 50 or 60 if you want a fancier one, or even more, from like Walmart, Walgreens, Kroger sometimes has them. And you can tell it what county you're in based on a code. And I think it has like a little booklet of codes, or you can Google it, real easy. And it essentially warns you with a very loud noise and some lights that, hey, there's a tornado warning for your area. The more expensive ones, you can customize which warnings you get. Mine at home, for instance, only goes off for tornado warnings, because in my household, if I had it going off for more than just a tornado warning, I'd be in the doghouse. So it just depends on your household, right? Some people like lots of alerts. Others are like, I need peace and quiet. I just need to know when I need to go to the basement. And that's kind of where we're at in my house. And I also have phones and computers and watches that also ding like crazy, because I work for a TV station and a weather department, that there are warnings. So we typically know at my house before they're going to be issued, for obvious reasons. But charge your devices too. Make sure that you've got phones, tablets, and laptops and necessary medical devices, just in case you lose power tomorrow. This is some of the behind the scenes, but in a simplistic way, of the ingredients that we have for tomorrow. Instability is high. 3,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, surface-based CAPE is what I was seeing on the NAM today. It can be a little overzealous, but I have a feeling with all the heating tomorrow, it will be high. Moisture levels are high. Dew points will be in the 60s and lower 70s. PWatts, which is precipitable water values, like I saw like a 1.86, almost a 2. That's pretty high, but it's not like egregious. It's not like Florida, but it's enough. Wind shear is the thing that I put at moderate, just because I don't see enough to merit like oh my gosh, this is a severe weather outbreak type of wind shear. It's just not there. The bulk wind shear, which is surface to 6 kilometer, I know I'm getting a little nerdy, but there's a lot of nerds in here. That I saw was like only up to like 40 knots tomorrow. That's like the baseline for severe weather. And then the low level SRH, storm relative helicity, which is that corkscrew motion in the atmosphere that can help create tornadoes. The very low level one, from the surface to 1 kilometer up, the one that's like super important to see if the low levels of the atmosphere have any spin in there, that was kind of low. So that kind of turned me off from putting this at high. I think this is definitely more of a moderate, maybe a low, depending on how this actually goes tomorrow. So we've got all the other ingredients, but the wind shear is kind of lagging behind. And that's normal for this time of year, because we're not quite into the fall severe weather season. The jet stream isn't down far enough from Canada yet to really give us an oomph on that wind shear. That's typically what does it. So this is kind of like just an amped up summer setup instead of like a spring severe weather setup where we're talking about crazy stuff that's getting ready to happen. This is not going to be like April or March around here, what we had. All right, so lift is very high because of the front. Okay guys, we're going to take a quick break, and after the break we're going to get to some new things. We're going to get to the hokey weather facts, we're going to get to the Saturday issue with the rain around here, and then the tropical outlook, because we're getting ready to have a named storm most likely. Stick around, we're going to take a 60-second break, and we'll be right back with all of those things that you'll want to see here on Wave Weather Now, Louisville's 24/7 weather live stream. All right, guys, we are back here on Wave Weather Now, and talking about what we're going to be seeing here for Saturday and beyond. But first, let's get to a fresh Hokie weather fact here with all this talk about severe weather that we've just been through. I thought it was interesting to look back at the months of the year in Louisville, and more specifically, National Weather Service office in Louisville. Which months of the year have the most and least number of severe thunderstorm warnings that have ever been issued in that county warning area that NWS Louisville has, which is most of our counties except like 4. So it turns out that September, and I had a hunch of this, so that's why I looked it up today, September is the second lowest number of severe thunderstorm warnings in the National Weather Service Louisville area, issued from 1986 to 2025. The least number overall was December, also not a shocker there. The most number, I believe, I think it was March or May. I think it was May. I think May. Yeah, May has the most. Couldn't remember what I looked up earlier. But yeah, that's today's Hokie weather fact. And since we don't have a 7 p.m. newscast due to the football game that I'm watching on another monitor here, that's why I'm giving you the Hokie weather fact here on Wave Weather Now. And speaking of nerdy things, got a couple of questions in here. I want to get to one from Estelle first. Do you teach meteorology at any of the local colleges? I don't. I do school talks, though, and I've got at least one of those scheduled coming up here soon. I usually talk to kids from 2nd through 8th grade, and if I'm lucky enough, sometimes high school as well, too. Get to talk more technical weather things with them, because when I was in high school, I was a big weather nerd, and that's kind of where my kind of core interest in meteorology came from, aside from being scared of storms as a kid, was kind of high school science classes there. So I love education. It's a lot of fun, but I don't do anything like that. Braden's asking, hey, what kind of coding was Wavy coded in? And if you don't know what Wavy is the alerts that appear on the bottom here of Wave Weather Now whenever there's a weather alert, a Wave app alert, a power outage, hurricanes, earthquakes. We've got all sorts of stuff programmed in there. Well, he's asking, how do those alerts work? What coding is that? Frankly, it's not Lua, it's not Python. It's actually HTML for those who are curious there. So that's HTML coded, but that is the most that I'll do, which makes sense because obviously there's so many different live streamers out there with all these tubers and zots on their screen, and all of them are HTML if you just do a simple Google. So I'm not giving away anything crazy under the hood here about it, but definitely a little bit of HTML action going on with that. Okay, so let's move forward here. We'll talk about the tropics real quick. The tropical outlook. We're getting ready to have Tropical Storm Gabrielle here. We thought this might happen at 5 o'clock today. It did not. Instead, they're keeping this 90% chance of development over the next 7 days, 60% chance over the next 2 days. They have assigned an invest number to this thing, so we're getting really close here. It's going to be pretty much at any time over the next few days that this will happen. The next name, of course, is Gabrielle. You can see all the unused names that are without check marks here. Umberto. We've got to keep the H silent on that one. I remember that from years past because they reused these. Imelda. You've got Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca, Sebastien. That's a French one. Tanya, Van, and Wendy. They use French, English, and Spanish names for Atlantic hurricane season names because those are the predominantly larger languages in the Western Hemisphere near where the Atlantic Basin is. So some of these, like Chantal, Fernand, Sebastien, you have to actually pronounce in the French way because that's how all the ships and all the kind of merchant marine operations are going to be pronouncing these. So we need to make sure that we're kind of like in step with them because all needs to be uniform in how you pronounce these because that's important for communications. So that's the latest on the tropical update. So let's talk about Saturday now that we got everybody back in here from our break. 70% chance of rain early Saturday. So we've talked about how on Friday the storm chance is primarily going to be late in the day, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the severe weather window. Now, after that 9 p.m. window is over, the storms aren't over. There will be additional rounds of rain, heavy rain and storms after 9 p.m. Friday that carry us all the way through early Saturday here. And the highest rain chance is actually after the severe weather will be over at 4 a.m. on Saturday. Here's Futurecast. There's this cold front that's just getting hung up overhead here. So 3, 4, 5 a.m., we're just getting absolutely bamboozled with rain here. 7 a.m. still raining pretty good in southern Kentucky. And then finally it gets out of here after about mid-morning, midday or so, and we should be dry by Saturday afternoon for most of us. So Saturday is not a loss. It's just going to be a day where we have rain in the morning. That's going to be kind of annoying for your morning plans, but by the evening we should be in great shape. Here's the rainfall totals that are expected here, and this goes from Friday and Saturday. Friday to Saturday here, so it includes everything that we've just talked about for Friday and Saturday. And you'll notice some 1 to 2 inch amounts there in the darker green and some yellow there denoting 2-inch plus amounts. This will waffle around a little bit because we're still a little bit of time away from this. If you're going to the Gaslight Festival 5K in J-Town, this is Saturday at 9 a.m. and you'll see it's a 40% chance of showers by that point. Might be a little drizzly. I don't think this will be heavy rain the way things are looking. Let's get this rain out of here so that the runners can be dry. Low temperatures by Sunday morning behind this front, by the way, will be in flannel territory, blue jean territory, whatever you want to call it, pumpkin spice weather, lots of 40s outside the city, lower 50s here in Louisville. This air mass behind this front, Friday night and early Saturday, means business. It'll be pretty cool. But fear not, do not despair, enthusiasts of summertime weather, because we're back in the upper 80s by mid to late next week. Could get hot, in fact. Could get really close to 90 around here. It will be dry next week. It'll be dry for a long stretch. The only thing that could change that would be a tropical system trying to move in. We'll see how that goes. Nothing real concrete on that right now. It looks just dry after we get through the rain for Friday night into early Saturday. So many folks are asking, what about Bourbon and Beyond? Well, we're now at a place where you can see the forecast here for Bourbon and Beyond. And believe it or not, and this is hilarious, I have the dates wrong on this. So what I'm going to do is change this in real time, because I know that starts on the 11th. I put Thursday thinking, oh yeah, it starts on Thursday. But the funny part is that today is Thursday. So the weather graphics program here called Max that we use was like, oh, you mean today Thursday, when I really meant a week from now Thursday. So all I have to do is put in the raw date instead of today, press the save button, call myself an idiot, reload the graphic, and you'll actually see the Bourbon and Beyond forecast here. I'm glad I caught that. Thank you guys for witnessing that with me. Whoops. There it is. That's the actual Bourbon and Beyond forecast. You'll see temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, plenty of sunshine, not a drop of rain in sight in our forecast as of right now. What we're going to do is show you the 10-day earliest alert and take some of your questions. We'll have a decent little question and answer and comment section here with some of your latest musings that you might have while the 10 days on the screen. So let's see. We've got one from Bijou Squishy. I appreciate you dumbing it down and explaining the setup. Sometimes it can get confusing. It can. TV weather is tough because you get 3 minutes to explain some of the most complex science on Earth, right? And you have to make it fun, digestible, easy to understand. It's a tough task, and we love doing it. So thank you. Appreciate your comment with that, because that makes us feel good. Kentucky Tina says, not too worried about October. I tend to stay indoors till spring from the end of September. Oh, yes. A lot of people don't like cold weather. I can tell you that. May Scotta says, looks like southern Meade County is in the clear. Not so much. We'll see about that. I wouldn't say that just yet, just because you guys are kind of close enough to where there's, at least the chance of severe weather. Again, this is not a big deal. I just want to make sure everybody knows that there is a chance, but it's not like April or May level severe weather, all right? Estelle says, does September, October look active coming up here? And September, I think we're kind of at our most active storm-wise for now. I think mid to late September, maybe a tropical time frame to watch. We'll see how that goes. October may be a stormier month to watch. Brian Good was actually looking at that today. Some of the climate modeling going into October, and it did have a lot of storm energy built into that there. So yes, October could be the more active of the 2 months here. ZK is like, so we have rain this Sunday. Nope, rain's over by Sunday. No problem there. That's an easy one. Let's see. Is there a path Clark County, Indiana could be in the path of the severe storms on Friday? Yes, there is a chance. My buddy Wyatt Wright. Hello, Wyatt. Appreciate you chiming in here. Let's see. Todd says, our buddy Todd Richmond, so no hurricane yet, Ryan, huh? Yeah, not yet. Not yet. We've already had our fair share of, tropical weather, but nothing that's really directly impacted the U.S. here. So fingers crossed we can continue that. Kentucky Tina says, old school HTML, kind of. It's a little more new school than that, though. I learned, just some background, I did learn a little bit about HTML in the late 90s and early 2000s from my dad. He's kind of handy with computer coding. So I kind of designed my own little website and Microsoft front page, if you remember that, in like 1999, with all my little model airplanes, little pictures, little 640 by 40 JPEGs of them. I didn't put it online, but it was just, hosted on my local computer. And then over the years, just kind of knowing the basic structure of HTML has been really, really handy to be able to edit it, to be able to write some simple stuff, to use it for various projects here at Wave. So coding is definitely a skill you need to know. I'm not a coder by any stretch, but I know enough to know what I'm looking at and to sometimes be able to take it apart and understand it and change what I need to change. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Let's see. Mind of Map says, what is the most active month in the second part of the year for tornadoes? I think it's November. October, November, something like that. That's typically our second severe weather season in the fall. December, it typically shuts down completely. We're like into actual winter, but I've been through many in October and November severe weather event here. One that stands out was November of '02. It's my 12th birthday. I think there were a lot of tornadoes around then. Let's see. Stormy weather equals haunted vacation. You betcha. That was me a couple of years ago. Every time I went on vacation, it was like, oh, tornado warning. Oh, no. But hopefully it won't be. That's the thing. This is not set in stone that we're getting severe weather tomorrow. This is just our best chance that we've had since July. So, of course, we have to talk about it and keep your family safe because there is some chance that we could have a problem tomorrow, especially with damaging winds. What else do we have? Tina says, I used to program HTML web pages and graphics. Oh, very cool. Yes. A lot of kids who were born in the late 80s and early 90s learned HTML when MySpace was a thing, because you could use HTML coding to customize your backgrounds and music and all that stuff. And it's funny because all that's kind of gone now. But I never had a MySpace, by the way. I was like literally 1 year too young. And I started with Facebook. I was like one of the very early Facebook kids in high school there. We're going to take one more. We'll take two more since we got a bunch coming in. Two more questions here. Mind of Map says, how different is the second tornado season compared to the spring? Well, it's much fewer tornadoes, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes the spring season doesn't happen either, but it's more likely that the second one kind of is a, kind of a whiff, if you will. And then Jose Zosiah is walking by with cake. Oh, that looks good. I need to eat dinner. Maybe that's what I should do here. I'm getting ready to get off of here in just a sec because I need some dinner. Was that November 9th, 2002 by chance? May have been. It was. I just remember coming home from my 12th birthday party. I think it was at Gaddyland in Okolona. Yeah, I think that birthday party was at Gaddyland in Okolona, and it was like rocking bad outside. Todd says, you're making me feel old. All right, guys, I'm going to hang it up. It's 7:38. We've been on here for almost 50 minutes now. Just wanted to give you guys an update in lieu of there being a Wave News at 7 tonight with football on. Wanted to make sure that you had the latest information on what you need to know about tomorrow's alert day. I'll look over the data tonight. We will have the latest for you on Wave News at 11, which, by the way, our main weather hits on our newscast do air here on Wave Weather Now. We've got some amazing trickery we do behind the scenes to make that happen. So you can watch those weather hits on Wave Weather Now. Keep it on your smart TV with the Wave Now app for like Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, wave3.com/weather now. And, of course, the Wave Weather app when you tap Watch Live, that actually goes to Wave Weather Now. So we've got it in every place that you want it. You can also get it on your Amazon Echo device. If you've got one with a screen, just say, Alexa, launch Amazon Silk, which is a web browser. It's amazing. And just type in wave3.com/weather now. That's how I watch Wave Weather Now in my kitchen on my little Amazon Alexa device, the 8-inch screen there. It's kind of cool. The music sounds good from that speaker, too. All right, guys, that's it for now. I'm Wave Meteorologist Ryan Hoke. I'll see you back on Wave News at 11 o'clock this evening. Have a fantastic night, and I'll see you then. Good night, everybody.